Welcome everyone, once again to Outdoor Analytics, bringing you the science behind the hunt. My name is Adam Kilgore, and this is a continuation of our 2018 bow review series. And in this review, we're going to be doing the 2018 Elite Ritual. A couple of notes before I start the review itself. It has been a little bit since I've done the last bow review. Part of that's just life, part of that is life gets busy, and it took me a little while to get this bow review done. The other part of that is it's been taking a while for Elite to ship out their bows, and they're just now starting to hit the shelves in any real number. In fact, the bow that you see here is not the bow I did most of my testing on. This is a brand new one. Elite sent me this, and as I was waiting for them to send me this bow, I grew impatient to get this review done, and I borrowed the bow, another bow very similar to this, same specs but in Realtree, and shot the bow and did my testing on that bow, or did my testing with that bow. With the exception of the speed and arrow weight, I will talk about those were shot through Chrono with this particular bow, but my hold, my testing, my shooting was done with that other bow. Of course, when I finally make the decision to use somebody else's bow and to borrow that bow to shoot with, midway through that testing, I get an email from Elite saying your bow's on its way. And so I decided just to finish up my testing instead of prolonging everything, restarting over with this bow when I knew the specs would be about the same. In the meantime, I've also gotten my Aoudad back from the taxidermist. It's a beautiful Euro mount. I'm very excited with how that turned out. Hopefully have some turkey hunts coming up this spring. I've been tasked with work to do some training for the next month or so, so my turkey season is going to be very compressed, but I still hope to get a little bit of bird hunting in. We'll see if that happens though. So anyway, on to the bow review. As you can see here, this is the 2018 Elite Ritual. At first glance, it bears a very strong resemblance with the 2017 offering from Elite, the Option, which came in both a 6 and a 7-inch brace height. Now, a few notes about the Option series was that it was a departure from Elite in a couple different ways. They had split limbs. It was their first split limb bow, as opposed to the solid limb they've always went with. They went with a decidedly more aggressive cam with less valley than it has been before. They increased the material, the riser material from a 6000 series aluminum to a 7000 series aluminum. Now, because of that, the price jumped up quite a bit, and there was quite a bit of backlash between the sticker shock or the perceived sticker shock of a bow that jumped up that much, rivaling with the carbon bow's cost, as well as a very un-Elite-like draw. So those that were familiar with Elite's draws and really enjoyed the Elite draw cycle, meaning a slow build, very little transition in very big valley, they weren't getting that with the Option. Other than that though, the bow was a very good bow in the fact that it was quiet, it was very fast, it met its specs, and it was an overall very well built bow, like Elites always are. So because of that, this year Elite decided to kind of change direction once again, go back to that Elite feel, and they came out with the Ritual. Now the Ritual, at first glance, like I said before, bears a resemblance to the Option. Has a similar split limb system. It has a similar cutouts in the riser. It has this caged riser, both front and bottom, or both top and bottom, I should say, of the grip. So it's there. The grip has been rounded and changed ever so slightly from the Option, which is a good change. I like that change. But overall, it's very similar to the Option. And you might prefer one or the other, but if you grab either one, you'll know when you grab the other that it's an Elite. Again, the attention to detail and the build quality is definitely there. Elite uses a color fusion type pattern. This particular one is in the mossy oak mountain country, and it is one of the best finished bows I have ever seen. The detail, and I will bring it up here, I'll do another part of the review where I bring this bow close to the camera, but inside these cutouts, inside these bridges, exceptionally well done. The limb graphics here are subtle but very well executed. The Cerakoting on the cams, they haven't, years ago there was an issue with them chipping quite a bit. That's been rectified in the last couple of years. That hasn't happened. Even the wood grip, the wood inlays in this grip and the Elite logo etched into those, just very, very well done overall, and a very solid offering from Elite. Winner's Choice strings and cables come standard on all Elites, and I guess a word about those are that they are Winner's Choice, they are from Winner's Choice, and they are a good factory string. And all factory strings are light years ahead where they were 5 or 10 years ago. These being no different. I will say, although these are a Winner's Choice string, I don't think the build quality is quite there, or is quite as good as what you'll buy from an aftermarket string company. And that makes sense because Winner's Choice couldn't be making thousands and thousands of strings for these bows, as well as all the other Elite bows and all their other custom string bows, and still spend the same amount of time on all of it. They just don't think they have the manpower to do that. So I think they build these strings to a set specification. They're very well done. You'll never hear a knock on them, but I do think they are just a step down from a custom Winner's Choice string, and that's okay. I still think, once these are sighted in and the initial rotation on your peeps done, you're not going to have any issue with these strings. But the attention to detail on the servings, on the little things that are kind of nitpicky, but if you know what to look for, you'll notice a little difference. So there's that. But other than that, the bow is overall, the detail is exceptionally well done. It's finished very well. Little things like stainless coated bushings for your stabilizers so they don't have any reflection. It's just they're just really well thought out bows. Now this bow, the specs on this bow are a 33 and some change, so 33 I think and a quarter axle to axle. It has a 6 3/4 inch brace height, and the IBO speed is 335 feet per second. Now, when these bows came out, one of the things that they were touted very highly and heavily was about their efficiency. They were supposed to be a very, very efficient bow. In fact, you hear some saying one of the most efficient, some saying the most efficient. I think it depends on the pro staffer you talk to at the time. But regardless, they were said to be a very, very efficient bow. And from my shooting, I believe that they are an efficient bow. I won't go and say as far as they are the most efficient bow ever, but they are an efficient bow. To get into the draw cycle, I'll show you that here in a little bit. I won't actually be shooting this bow. Like I said, my shooting was done on another bow and I didn't get video of that. I apologize. That was on a different bow. But the draw cycle on this bow, the draw cycle is very linear, as I've spoken to other bows. Linear is smooth to me. No humps or dumps in the draw cycle. No quick peaks or valleys or buildups. It rolls over very nice. Now it has a high let-off. They're stated to have between 85 and 90% let-off, depending on who you talk to again. Part of that is this draw stop, the upper draw stop. It can be played with a little bit to get you more or less valley, and a feel. So with that let off and that higher valley, which it feels again like the Elites of old, maybe not quite in the draw cycle, builds up a little bit stiffer than they do. The draw cycle is a little stiffer than those were, and that makes sense because it's a little faster than they were, regardless of what you read on the Pulse and the Answer and some of those others. They were, to say the least, a little over optimistic at times on the chronograph for what their speed was, and meaning, one, the IBO was a little optimistic, and two, if you think you were hitting the speeds, well, maybe you should check to see what weight you were really pulling, and if your bow was in spec, meaning ATA length and brace height. But regardless, it's a little stiffer draw cycle than some of the other Elites in the past. but it does have a very nice dwell zone, as they like to call it, valleys, a lot of us like to call it, and it just sits back there very, very nicely. The draw stops, or the limb stops, excuse me, the limb stops allow for a very solid back wall. Can't get any more solid than a limb stop. It just locks it in there. I have found that a lot of times I like to shoot cable stops a little bit better, but that is absolutely a personal preference, and if you like limb stops, you will like this bow. To go on for a little more detail, like last year, they have these shelf pads on the limbs, so the limb stops comes around and hit those pads and not the limbs themselves. It's a little different than some of the other companies, but it does work, and it gives you that good back wall. It gives you what you're looking for, and it gives you a lot of valley, a lot of ease on that back wall, holding it back. Just mention the grips on these bows. So it's just 2 side plates. The grips feel really nice. It sits really well in your hand. The bow balances well. It's a fairly forgiving grip, meaning you don't have to ever worry about twisting your hand or moving your hand. You'll hear some people on YouTube talk about how you have to play with your grip a little bit. That sounds great, but you really want a grip that you can just grab and go. I mean, if you're thinking about your grip in your hand placement when that big 180-inch buck is walking by, you know, that's just one thing on your mind, or one, you probably won't be thinking about it. 2, you shouldn't be thinking about it. So in that respect, this grip is very easy to grab and to get just in a natural position to grab, pull back, draw, shoot, and it'll work for you. Balanced well. It's not real top heavy like a lot of bows. I have a stabilizer on here, but really not real top heavy at all. Without that stabilizer, it still feels pretty good, and at full draw, it feels really good. It locks in and just feels great. So with that being said, I'm going to stop this, call this part 1 of the bow review. I'm going to bring this bow closer to the camera. I'm going to draw it. I won't fire it, but I'll draw you, at least be able to see the draw, and then I'll speak a little bit more about the IBO specs, the speeds I'm getting, and my thoughts on this bow. So thank you, and stay tuned to part 2 of the bow review.